Going live here. This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com on my cell phone again because Roger's internet has still yet to fix my Wi-Fi connection. They were supposed to come today, but they didn't show up. So let me get on to the professional wrestling news of the day. WWE Raw last night finally got out of the 0.4s. They got a 0.51, just barely out of the 0.4s, of course. This was for Shane McMahon's big return for this Raw Underground show that many, including myself, believed this was going to be like a brawl for all type show where it was actually going to be real because they were promoting it as if it was going to be real, as if it wasn't going to be like your traditional pro wrestling. But it's basically, to quote Brian Alvarez from the Wrestling Observer, fake fighting on a fake fighting show, but the fake fighting from Raw Underground is supposed to be real. So that pretty much sums up what that idea was. I think they would have been much better off if they had done a brawl for all type thing. Some people like to shit on the brawl for all, but it was over. Their biggest mistake was having Butterbean come in and defeat Bart Gunn and kill the whole tournament. I was a Raw viewer in those days, and I distinctly remember fast forwarding to the brawl for all. I would usually tape it and watch it the next morning. And I remember that would be the first thing I would watch, but they didn't do that. And if you're going to do a fake fight thing that's pre-taped and so forth, why don't you at least use the hundreds of millions that you're making from these TV companies paying you hundreds of millions and actually do like Hollywood special effects and cool special effects? Or if you're going to do fake MMA, have the fighters actually fight in an octagon with gloves, with some semblance of rules, so we can suspend our disbelief a little bit. But this was basically wrestling without the ring ropes, tons of cuts, tons and tons of cuts in the matches, very short, quote-unquote, matches. Just horrible. Many people are saying it was the worst Raw in recent memory, which is saying a lot because there have been some really bad WWE TV shows. And who's the head writer? Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon is up there. And recently on the WWE conference call, it was released that Paul Levesque is also part. He also helps out with Raw and SmackDown. That creative genius Paul Levesque that loses week after week to AEW. In the AEW versus NXT wars. Speaking of AEW, Rick Bassman, Billy Graham, many others commented on the video I put out of Taylor Hendricks and I goofing around that AEW should have us do a one-off against Cody and Brandy Rhodes. But you know, that would never happen because everyone knows that they're too afraid to fight us. And I have way too much heat for AEW. John Falsetta tipped me $2. And he says after the quote-unquote fights on Raw Underground, the wrestlers involved can say that they told the story. Yeah. I mean, I watch MMA. I watch at least 3 MMA fights a day. And this looked nothing like MMA. It looked like choreographed wrestling without ropes. There was a few MMA moves thrown in there, but it didn't get the feeling of me like even an MMA sparring match would have. Scott Steiner had to close his restaurant. Sorry to hear about that. He had a Shoney's in the Atlanta, Georgia area the past 4 years. And unfortunately, due to COVID, he's had to close his restaurant. So I really like Scott Steiner. We've used him 3 times in Great North Wrestling. There's an interview with him too up on this channel. I hope to do another interview with him sooner than later. But I was really sorry to hear that because he's a good guy. Dana White also confirmed that Conor McGregor's not going to fight again in 2020, saying he's retired. So I'll read some of your questions. I am on a cell phone, which is annoying to read questions on, so I won't go through too many. There's a lot of them on here. Raw Underground was a parody of Brawl for All. Jokerfish says he was a big Bart Gunn fan. Maria Davis says Raw Underground was a joke. AJRX says the Hurt Business segment was cool. Didn't see it. Richard Min says Raw in 98 had some great wrestling. WWE has so many cool wrestlers, but they don't know what to do with them. Caesar says Underground looked a little less choreographed, according to Michael Allen Rubin. From the stuff I saw of it, it looked extremely choreographed. As someone that watches MMA and has trained extensively in MMA, it looked totally phony to me. I'm not going to read too many more of these comments just because it's really difficult for me to read them off of my cell phone. But Alexander says, disappointing to see the current state of wrestling. I agree. It really is disappointing. I'd rather listen to UFO lectures and watch UFO interviews because, credible or not, the storytelling is better and they actually keep kayfabe with a lot of these UFO interviews. So I find them more interesting than the quote-unquote storytelling in wrestling, which is not entertaining at all to me. Watch SummerSlam 92 on Fox Sports, someone says. SummerSlam 92 was a great one. I remember that one. 89 was probably my favorite SummerSlam. 92 was probably my second favorite. Music B Marini or Mariotti says, would I rather get a stink face from Rikishi or job to Cody and Brandy? Well, neither would ever happen. Let's end it at that. And if you guys want to see that match, I mean, that video has only been up a matter of hours. It already has over 2,000 hits. Start harassing AEW Cody and Brandy because I will not job to those losers, and I would actually beat the hell out of them. And you know what? We just did that as a joke, but Billy Graham says they'd be stupid not to do that match. They are stupid probably, and they probably wouldn't do that match, but it'd be a good match. Homebrew Gaming tipped me $2.79 and says his home promotion closed. Sorry to hear that. Thanks for the tips. I'll be using that on my protein shakes. My arms are getting back to normal. I'm heading off to the gym right now. Have a good night.